So with that, I will go ahead and pass it over to you, Matt.
All right, can you hear me, Megan?
You sound great.
All right, awesome. Just making sure everything's good to go on my end. So, welcome to the June webinar. Thank you, Megan, and welcome to everyone. It is meteorological summer now. June 1st marked the first day. In meteorology and climatology, I say meteorological summer. We actually go by the annual temperature cycle to separate the seasons as opposed to going by the astronomical season. So hence our three warmest months of the year are June, July, and August. In the end, it just makes it easier on us for data processing. So anyways, right now, I think we're all happy for the most part to be seeing some rainfall. Saying that, it looks like South Central and West Central Kentucky may be getting a little bit more than what they want. Saw some totals down that way in the 1.5 to 2+ inch range this morning, but anyways, let's get right to it. I want to start out by thanking Dr. Foster, Megan, all the folks down at WKU for giving me this opportunity to host some of these webinars going forward. Lucky for me, I get the first one following Stu's retirement, so no pressure at all, but I'll try my best and let's get started. So Megan provided me with this awesome photo from the Kentucky Measurement Station in Shelby County on May 1st, coincided with Derby Day this year. We got lucky and both Oaks and Derby days saw awesome conditions in place. Highs each day rose into the 70s under mostly clear skies. We actually got pretty lucky because the weather pattern was quite active both before and after the event. So following Derby Day, May overall ran dry and cool, but not without some bouts of summer heat and some flooding early in the month. So today I'll summarize the month of May, the impacts we've seen on the hydrologic and agricultural sides, and look forward to what we can expect in June. So this webinar is presented and broadcast through the Kentucky Climate Center at WKU in partnership with the National Integrated Drought Information System and in coordination with the Midwest Drought Early Warning System. So our next scheduled webinar is going to be July 1st at 2 p.m. Eastern and 1 p.m. Central, first Thursday of July. I believe Mr. Chip Zimmer with the Division of Water is going to be the host of the next one. So also, just to say, these webinars are being recorded and will be available for later viewing on the Kentucky Climate Center YouTube page. So just a quick reminder, the Kentucky Drought and Hydrologic Impact Reporter is available at the following links. I'd say this would be a perfect time to start using the Impact Reporter if you haven't already with the drier May we just experienced. This tool was made by the Kentucky Division of Water, Chip over there in the Kentucky Climate Center to help identify how dry or wet it may be in different areas of the state at any particular time. It's used by a variety of folks across Kentucky to help us get a better handle locally of the hydrologic conditions you're seeing in your neck of the woods. So this ultimately helps us put together the U.S. Drought Monitor map for Kentucky, which shows the spatial scale and intensity of drought or abnormally dry conditions across Kentucky. We'll look at that here in a bit, but this form is really easy to use and takes very little time to fill out. In the end, I always talk to farmers, producers across the state. They might ask, well, why are we filling this out, so on and so forth. Well, not only does it really help us out, but at the end of the day, for agricultural purposes, the U.S. Drought Monitor is used to issue state drought declarations, also for hydrologic purposes, I should say, and something called the Livestock Forage Disaster Program. So today, just like recent webinars, is going to go over the new climate normals once again. Stu went a little bit into these last month, the changes in precipitation and temperatures we've seen with these new climate normals coming out. I'm going to go more into the city-specific numbers we're seeing with these new climate normals. How much more precip are we seeing on an annual basis? How warmer has it been on an annual basis? Things such as that. We'll then go into recent conditions, temperature, precip. As I was saying, started off the month of May wet, ended up the faucet started turning off for a while. So that affected soil moisture, stream flows across the state. Not much in the way of flooding, but we are talking abnormally dry conditions right now. Then we'll take a look at some impacts in agriculture, the outlooks moving forward into the June months, and then a summary and everything, and then questions and answer session if anyone chooses. So I put a couple pictures over there on the left, some cameras from the mesonettes across the state. The one in Henderson County, once again on May 1st, Derby Day this year. Awesome conditions in place. You don't see a cloud in the sky. Looks like that field may have just been planted. But then we go down to May 4th, kind of go in the opposite direction, only 3 days later. But we were talking about flooding down in that region, and it may be a little hard to see, but it looks like this field is flooded a little bit. Some of that water sticking around, not able to soak completely into the soil. So anyways, had a wet few days there to start the month. So first off, looking at normals. Again, Stu went over some of this information last month. He did show this map up in the upper right-hand corner showing the percentage increase in annual precipitation across the state. You can see some bullseyes there in maybe the bluegrass area, eastern Kentucky, maybe less so over in western Kentucky. But anyways, just as a refresher, we use these, what we call climate normals, to compare our current weather pattern to our current weather conditions. You know, this time of the year, we typically see our highs or normals in the low 80s. Maybe we're a little bit below normal than that with our current temperatures today. The past 6 years, we've ran above normal in precipitation, and also above normal in temperatures. So it gives us something to compare our current climate, current weather conditions to. So in doing so, they are usually based off a 30-year period, and they're updated every decade. And previously, we went off of the 3-decade period of 1981 through 2010. And that has since changed to the 1991 through 2020 normals. So we took off that 81 through 1990 time frame, and we added on the 2011 through 2020 time frame. And you can see the differences in annual precipitation up there in the upper right-hand corner. But with this webinar, I wanted to look more city-specific across the state. So I have the normals on here, both from 1981, the average temperature for these, the average annual temperature for several locations across the state. And then I get the average annual temperature from the 1991 to 2020 normals, compare those two to get a difference, and then I do the same with precipitation. So looking at the chart, all of these cities, Bowling Green, Lexington, Paducah, Louisville, and Jackson, all these airports across the area, they all saw an increase in temperatures whenever we changed the normals from 1981 to 2010 to 1991 to 2020. The biggest difference was seen in Bowling Green, Warren County Airport, where we saw a positive of 1.1 degrees. But all of these are quite significant. It just shows that we are in a warmer climate as of late over this past decade and the past 30 years at that. So precipitation normals, I consider these maybe a little bit more significant. In some cases, we look at the map above. Once again, we don't see those darker shades in Kentucky until we really go into the bluegrass and eastern Kentucky. Still a little bit of those blue shades in western Kentucky, hinting at more rainfall across the region. But you can see these numbers kind of verified in this chart below. So Bowling Green, Warren County Airport, not much of a difference in the new normals. They are now averaging 50.12 inches per year. But we look at some of these other cities throughout here. Lexington, 1981 to 2010 normals, they averaged 45.17 inches. we go to the 1991 to 2020 normals, we are now at 49.84 inches. So we're running pretty close to what Bowling Green is now running. Paducah, 49.08. Once again, a slight increase of about an inch or so. Not a whole lot. Louisville, another big increase from roughly 45 inches to just over 48. And then we look at Cincinnati, the northern portions of the state, going from 42.5 to 45. And then lastly, in Jackson, eastern Kentucky, going up another 3.5 inches. So a very considerable wetter climate across much of the state here with these new 1991 through 2020 normals coming out. Now, what I do want to say, we have been trending warmer and wetter. That doesn't mean we can't see cooler periods. That doesn't mean we can't see drier periods. They will happen. But overall, looking at an annual basis, we've been trending warmer and wetter recently. So just to start out, we take a look at rainfall this past week across the state. A combination of radar estimated precipitation with Kentucky measurement stations overlaid. Most of this precip occurred over the past 48 hours, some extending back into the round we saw last Friday, but overall, most over the past 48 hours. Overall, as you can see, western and central Kentucky benefit the most from this rainfall. You can see many locations topping out around 2 to 3+ inches. This comes after a 2-week period when we were starting to get pretty dry across the state. Portions of eastern Kentucky and the Bluegrass didn't see as much rainfall over the past week, but still everyone was pretty much over a 1/2 inch across the state. So it was very good to see after that period of 2 weeks with dry conditions in place. The good news is that eastern Kentucky will likely see some more rainfall today as a cold front pushes through the region. So we'll see how much that area gets. Going on to the 30-day map, you notice our highest accumulations have stayed predominantly down in the area of west central and south central Kentucky. Elsewhere, totals have ran well below normal for what is normally our wettest month of the year here in the Bluegrass State. Preliminary data from the Midwest Regional Climate Center shows the state averaged 3.85 inches for the month of May. This is about 1.25 inches below normal for this time of year. The last time the state averaged less precip in the month of May was back in 2015, but that year, that was actually followed by 2 extremely wet months of June and July. So I'm not going to say we're going to see 2 extremely wet months in June, July this year, but that is what happened back in 2015. Outside of a couple perfect days for the running of the Oaks and Derby earlier in the month, a wet pattern from the end of April actually carried over into the start of May. I wrote the weather summary for the crop report that week, and the data I sent for the report between May 3rd and May 9th showed the state averaged 2.33 inches that week. So it was pretty wet, and that was about 1 inch above normal for that time. So some spots saw more extensive activity than others. I've referenced that picture a second ago down in south central Kentucky. Some spots with that event saw 2 to 5+ inches in less than 6 hours. I believe that was on May the 4th. Led to numerous cases of flash flooding, cars stalling out. But believe the Barron County measurement station even recorded over 7 inches that week. So anyways, this was followed by a much drier pattern across the state as the faucet really just shut off for the most part over the next couple weeks. This was because a ridge of high pressure built across the area, which in the end, what this thing does is it deflects any precipitation around the area to our west and to our north. While areas to our west, out in the Plains region, down to Louisiana, saw quite a bit of rainfall, we didn't see much of anything. And I think over that 2-week period, deficits were about 2 inches below normal. So getting pretty dry, and we were needing some rain. We were starting to see some impacts. I'm going to talk about that with the U.S. Drought Monitor here in a second, but after that extensive dry and warm period, we did see a couple rounds of rain last Wednesday and Friday, obviously followed by some of the more extensive rain this week. So Just quickly moving on to 60 days, our trend of highest totals remain down there in the southwest corner. You can see some totals top 10 inches. I think the max is there in Grayson County at 13.04 inches. As we'll see in a second, most of these totals are still below normal for this 2-month period after we saw another dry month in April. So for the most part, or I guess looking at state data, we've went 2 straight months of seeing below normal rainfall here in Kentucky. Going into the 90-day period, totals in the southwest are actually running above normal. 14, 15, and 16, 17 inches in some spots. This is in comparison to the rest of the state that is running below normal over this time period. You can see the totals in the yellow color over in eastern Kentucky with values of 7 or 8 inches, well below normal for what is normally our wettest time of the year. So this is a little bit of a concern. I've talked to some farmers recently. Obviously, we're getting rain this week, which is a good thing, but it did cause some concern as we head into these hot summer months. And really, these months of April and May is whenever we're wanting to recharge our soil profile. So we weren't necessarily seeing that this year, but activity has really picked up here recently. So looking at monthly to seasonal precipitation, percent of normal, we got 30-day percent of normal precipitation up here in the upper left-hand corner. Across the state, with the exception of some of these counties over in west central Kentucky, pretty much everybody was running below normal during the month of May. These tannish areas were 50 to 75% of normal, even yellow 75 to 90% of normal. We get into some of those orange shades out there in eastern Kentucky, down there just north of Pulaski County and whatnot. Those are actually 25 to 50% of normal. So some portions of the state were really lacking in precipitation the past 30 days. We go on to the 60-day percent of normal rainfall right next to it. Once again, we had 2 straight months of below normal rainfall, and we're seeing that here. We still see widespread drier than normal conditions across a good portion of southeastern Kentucky. We still see some of those shades of orange in there of 25 to 50% normal, but for the most part, this tannish area, 50 to 75% of normal precipitation. Once we get into that 60-day time frame, we do see a little bit more in the way of above normal rainfall across western Kentucky, but for the most part, much of the state is still running drier. Going to the 90-day, these deficits are extending a little bit farther out now. 90-day showing those below normal deficits across the eastern half of the state, while the western half is trending or has been a little bit above normal. So anyways, it is trending drier across the state the more we look at it. So now, going on to temperatures, preliminary data from the Midwestern Regional Climate Center shows the state averaged 62.1 degrees for the month of May. This would be roughly 3 degrees below normal. The cloudy and wet conditions kept temperatures below normal for much of the first half of May. High struggled in the 60s over the second week of May. Even had some patchy frost in the picture for portions of eastern Kentucky and the bluegrass during that second week. So through the first half of May, bottom line, I just want to highlight it was very cool. I did a little data digging at the time, and highs for the month had been running about 6 degrees below normal, and lows were about 4 degrees below normal. So it was a very cool first half of May. While it was cool the first half, the flip switched and summer-like heat built into the area over the third week of May, peaking in the middle 80s to low 90s for just about everyone. Luckily, we didn't have those high dew points that we would typically associate with summer heat, so it wasn't quite as humid outside. But it was hot nonetheless. This was followed by some cooler temperatures following the passage of a cold front last Friday. So we closed up May with a very cold Saturday in place. Several locations, most of the state didn't get out of the 50s for highs, with several of those places breaking all-time record cool highs for the day. So very cool conditions for the end of May in place. So now we look at soil moisture here on the left. Shows our soil moisture ranking is running closer to normal for this point in the spring season. There are some areas that are running below average in northern Kentucky, but nothing overly concerning at this point, especially with this precip that we just got. Saying that, something to watch is those lower rankings across Indiana and Ohio. Whereas many times in the case of drought, we sometimes see these areas want to expand. So that being said, these rankings up there in Indiana and Ohio, they have seen a bit of an improvement since the last time we talked last month. So there is some good news there. We did get that rainfall recently, which was much appreciated. But the image on the right shows shallow groundwater. Shows a shallow groundwater drought indicator from NASA, but shows the western half of the state is running a little wetter than normal compared to the eastern half of the state, which is closer to normal. I want to say, though, that we had some trouble getting the most up-to-date map, and this is actually taken from May 10th. So it'll be interesting to see how this changes on the next update. Of course, with the 2 weeks of dry weather, I would think this is going to kind of take a turn for the worse, but we'll see with the next update. So going on to the next slide, I looked at 30-day soil moisture graphs from mesonet stations across the state. Up here in the upper left, I got Oldham County. Over there on the other side of Louisville, Henderson County over in western Kentucky. I went ahead and put Butler there in west central Kentucky, and Madison over here next to Lexington. But I just wanted to point out here, you look at all these graphs, you look at those gray and blue lines, and we started off the month in all these cases looking pretty good. Soil moisture in a good area right there. But anyways, we got into those two dry weeks of May, and we really see those lines starting to decrease, those blue and gray lines, 2-inch soil moisture and 4-inch soil moisture. So soil moisture at both those levels going on the downhill trend. We see that in all of them. Oldham, upper left, Butler, lower left, and then again over here on the right in Henderson, Madison County. But we are starting to see those lines increase a little bit with these wet conditions we've seen the past week. So something we definitely wanted to see moving forward. I know I was talking to Chip, about a week or two ago about soil moisture and the impact on agriculture. A lot of farmers, a lot of producers, this was a good time. It was a good time to get planting done for the year, or at least get pretty close. It was a good year, or a good time to bale hay at the time. But there towards the end of this period, we started getting warm outside, and talking to a bunch of these farmers, it gets on the back of your mind, we're going to need rainfall pretty soon, or else this might spell some trouble. So I think for the most part, everything's worked out recently. And anyways, moving forward, we look at this evaporative demand drought index. You'll notice we don't see very much in the way of blue shades on this map in Kentucky, which would indicate below average evaporative demand with cooler weather in place, cooler and wetter weather in place. That was the case in April, but we've turned the tide going into the second half of May, and now we are seeing much more in the way of yellow, tan, and red colors, indicating much more evaporative demand in place. These areas would be indicating drier conditions. Remember, low moisture combined with higher temperatures is not a good combination. don't quite see this same trend in the 1 month perspective over there on the right with a cool start to the month and wetter conditions. So we'll see where this goes going into June. So looking at stream flows, 7-day average, a little bit different from what we saw last month. We are seeing some stream flows running below normal and much below normal in some cases, especially there around Fayette County and out in eastern Kentucky. Last month we were running pretty well, but with those dry conditions we've seen recently, we are seeing some of those impacts on stream flows. I will say I talked to my department head here at UK, and he has quite a few head of cattle out in Berea, Madison County, and he is visibly seeing those reductions in stream flow right now, and it is a little bit concerning for that area of the state, especially for livestock and whatnot, because even though we've been seeing some wetter conditions here recently, eastern Kentucky hasn't necessarily seen all that rainfall like west central and south central Kentucky have. Looking at 20-day averages, we're looking all right across much of the state, actually running above normal out in western and west central Kentucky. But once again, you get over into eastern Kentucky, going back the past month, and we still see some stream flows running below normal and much below normal in some cases. So definitely something we're going to watch moving forward. I know Chip will have his eyes on the amount of rainfall we get from this cold front today, see how much amounts from that. But definitely we're seeing some impacts of those dry conditions in April and May and stream flows. So looking at current flooding, obviously with the dry conditions, won't spend too much time on this slide. Not seeing any problems, even with all this rainfall like south central and west central Kentucky saw the previous week. I don't believe I saw much in the way of flooding. With 2 dry weeks, the ground was, for the most part, able to take all that rainfall. So, looking at the new update to the U.S. Drought Monitor, something that we haven't talked about for quite some time. We're actually seeing some abnormally dry conditions out in eastern Kentucky. We see a spot down there in the Pennyrile region, southern Pennyrile region of south central Kentucky, showing abnormally dry conditions. But again, believe most of this is with the low stream flows in place. Looking at the agricultural side, I didn't have much impacts to relay on to Chip at the time. Once again, farmers were able to get out in the field planting, had just enough moisture in place, and so on and so forth. But you can see up in Indiana, Ohio, and Illinois, they're actually seeing some improving conditions lately, which is good news for us. Once again, you start seeing these bullseyes of drought developing across the area. Those tend to want to expand. So the more rain we can see, the better. Michigan up there is still having some problems. Areas of Michigan, or a large portion of Michigan, is still in moderate drought, some portions in a severe drought. But I was just talking to Chip before this call, and with all that rainfall south central, south or west central Kentucky saw the past 48 hours, it may be a good bet that we see those abnormally dry conditions over in the Pennyrile region diminish over the next week, and then we'll see what happens the rest of the day and go forward on eastern Kentucky moving forward. So, but once again, it's been a while since we've seen abnormally dry conditions of this extent. Just going to the changes in the drought monitor, we've seen a 1-class degradation across eastern Kentucky here recently, so that just happened, and you can see all the improvement across Indiana and Ohio. And then with that ridge in place, they saw some improvement over in Texas and Oklahoma and Kansas recently with wetter conditions out that way. So we'll see where this rain takes us today as we look at eastern Kentucky. But going into a zoomed-in look at the U.S. drought monitor from Kentucky, just looking at eastern Kentucky and southeastern Kentucky again, 22% of the state is now showing abnormally dry conditions. We look at last week, I guess we were at 14%, but we are seeing an increase out that way, and we'll see what happens with the rainfall associated with this cold front. Looking at storm reports from last month, it was May. This is typically one of our more active months of the year, but you might see, or it might seem like you see quite a few reports on this map, but in actuality, I feel like it was a rather quiet May by those May standards we go by. Most of these reports occurred on May 4th through the 6th, and again on May 9th. May 4th through the 6th, again, we had all that flooding in south central Kentucky on May 4th. We had several tornadoes accompany that flooding, some damaging winds. But for the most part, outside of those date ranges there, we didn't see much severe weather at all throughout the month. Again, south central Kentucky, 2 to 5 inches in less than 6 hours is definitely going to cause problems. But overall, I'd say a pretty quiet month of May based on years previous. So now, going into ag impacts, looking at agriculture, it seems as though we got through the first couple of months of the growing season fairly well. We talked last month about sub-freezing temperatures on April 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, and the impact on wheat. I just talked to Carrie Knott, wheat specialist here at UK, and she mentioned wheat damage has been minimal, and wheat that we thought we saw damage has kind of pushed through. So looking pretty good. In that instance. So with the drier month of May, farmers made great strides in getting beans and corn to ground. I put the summary table from the latest Kentucky crop progress and condition report above. Corn planting is nearly complete, and soybeans planted now sits at 66%, well ahead of that 5-year average of 47%. I'm starting to hear some folks have finished planting altogether. As we look over at the right, just like April, crop conditions remain predominantly in the good to excellent categories, topping 80% combined for each crop there. The dry conditions also led to a very, very, very favorable window to spray fungicides on wheat and then cut, rake, and bale hay. Seemed like everywhere I looked at that time during that two-week time period, fields were being cut across the state. I'm not the best photographer in the world, but I was driving some back roads home from Paris a couple of weeks ago and got this picture of some baled hay in Scott County. Talking with some guys at work, it really couldn't have been a better situation. Usually we have trouble seeing a solid window to cut hay in May, which is normally our wettest month of year. Many times in a wet month, it may become over mature, which leads to decreased protein concentration and increased fiber, which isn't as digestible and leads to less intake of hay. And anyways, cutting hay early leads to much better digestibility and more protein content. I read in an article, let me see if I got it here, that came from UK Forage News yesterday, and they mentioned a Tennessee study as a reason to cut hay early. Tennessee compared 3 fescue hays cut on May 3rd, May 14th, and May 25th, which were then fed to 500-pound Holstein heifers, and a delay in 22 days resulted in a daily gain drop of 70%. So if you cut early, they saw gains of 1.39 pounds early in the month, and a late cut resulted in 0.42 pounds late in the month. So bottom line, you don't want your hay to become over mature if you can get to it. So something else I want to add is something I started this past month is the UK Ag Weather Update. This is something I've been wanting to do for the past 2 or 3 years, and I finally said I'm going to do it this year. And anyways, I'm sending out a weekly update every Monday, Tuesday time frame, giving farmers, producers across the state a look at current conditions, much kind of what we're putting into these webinars, just going on a weekly basis and more closely related to agriculture, going to look at those current climate conditions, how they impacted ag in the past week, moving on to the forecast the next week, and I'll look at the outlooks moving forward, and then I try to add in some info, something interesting I saw the previous week. So anyways, I got the web link to sign up for the Ag Weather Update there at the bottom, so feel free, and you'll get an email sent to you every week with a look at the latest edition. So moving forward, one of the concerns earlier in the month was a slow growth with cooler temperatures in place. Just to give you an idea of how slow the process has been, here's some images from an article put out by Drs. Chadley and Carrie Knott of UK. These beans were planted on April 9th near Lexington, and they didn't emerge until May 3rd and stay that way through May 10th. So in some cases a month below ground. But similar conditions in Princeton with beans planted in March 10th, not emerging until April 9th. The cool weather combined with cloudy days and moist conditions, and these conditions favored the threat of slugs and beetles feeding on these seedlings. So I showed some pictures from Dr. Villanueva on the right of some of these slugs and snails. Just emerged seedlings are most at risk from feeding and result in some damage to soybean fields. Some may have sprayed some chemical to combat these pests, and some may just replant. Dr. Rick Besson, another UK entomologist, also mentioned the presence of black cutworm in some fields, which favors the same weather conditions. So luckily, we did warm up in a large way later in the month, leading to increased growth and reduced susceptibility. Saying that, the increased temperatures and extended dry period did lead to some concerns moving forward on soil moisture, but those fears have once again subsided a bit with the rainfall we saw this past week or so. So, just to close up, going back to ag a little bit, I believe now is the time to start thinking about heat stress moving forward. We had some heat a couple weeks back, but the difference this time around is we will actually see dew points creeping up over the next few days going into the weekend, which dew points were basically associated with the amount of moisture in the air. I always tend to tell everyone when you see those dew points start getting into the mid to upper 60s, it's going to start feeling pretty sticky outside. When it tops 70, it starts becoming oppressive across the state and very uncomfortable. So moving forward, you'll want to make sure your livestock have plenty of shade, plenty of water. I know we were just talking about streams running low across eastern Kentucky, so this will be something to watch moving forward. Luckily, we are getting the rain yesterday, today. I talked about my boss down Madison County. There is some concern with these stream levels. Speaking of the dry conditions, I know some specialists are advising make sure to get your first cut of hay in now if you haven't already, and replenish your reserves in case there is a summer drought. Not saying there will be. Don't want to raise an alarm. We are looking better from where we were a week or two ago, but just in case. And another way that you might plan for the possibility of summer drought is not to overgraze those pastures and thus have some longer recovery times. So I think a rule of thumb is only graze down to 3 or 4 inches. So now we look on to those summer months moving forward. So looking at the 7-day rainfall, a lot of this is going to be associated with today's rainfall. So overall, over the next week, only looking at a ½ inch, between a ½ inch and 1 inch across most of the state. Down there in the Purchase and Pennyroyal regions, more so in the ½ inch to ½ inch range. So there isn't a whole lot of rainfall on the way for this time of year. I hate to say it, but whenever it starts getting hot outside, that can be a problem. More evapotranspiration, less moisture for those crops in place, soil moisture going on the downhill trend. Next week, after a dry Friday and Saturday, we're more or less getting into a more summer-like pattern, more humid conditions, more heat And we start to see that pattern where we're only seeing isolated scattered chances on a daily basis. Now, we're still quite a ways out, so we'll see where the forecast goes, but that's where we sit right now. Looking a little farther out, looking at the 6 to 10 day outlooks, these are valid for June 8th through June 12th. We see those dark shades of red color there on the left. This hints at pretty high confidence and above normal temperatures continuing in that June 8th through 12th time frame. We look over on the right side of the map, and I'll take this outlook any day for this time of the year, but showing a little bit higher confidence or a higher probability and above normal rainfall across most of the state. So we'll see if this verifies, but ultimately seeing a warm and possibly wetter trend into that 6 to 10 day time period. Going on to the 8 to 14 day, those warmer temperatures do look to win out across the state of Kentucky. Our probabilities are down a little bit compared to the 6 to 10 day period, but this does come with decreased accuracy the farther we go out. So, but anyways, this warmer trend looks to continue for the first half of June. And then we look over there at the precipitation outlooks for June 10th through 16th. And precipitation may be running closer to normal, maybe a little bit above normal down there across southeastern Kentucky, a little bit higher probabilities, but nothing with too much confidence on these maps. So bottom line, this is still, a week and a half out, so we'll see where it goes. But I would say there is pretty high confidence in above normal temperatures. This is the new outlooks that came out, a few days ago, the updated outlooks for the month of June as a whole. And these June outlooks are showing maybe a better probability of above normal temperatures across the northern bluegrass, northeastern Kentucky, equal chances for below normal, near normal, or above normal across the majority of the state. So based on those 6 to 10 and 8 to 14 day outlooks, I guess looking at the June outlook, this would almost hint at maybe a cooler second half of June. Now, we'll see if that pans out, but that's kind of the hints I'm seeing from these outlooks. And good news, once again, in the June 1 month outlook, looking at higher probabilities of above normal precip in our neck of the woods. Going on to the summer months, June, July, and August, seeing that trend of above normal temperatures or higher probability of above normal temperatures continue. Maybe a little bit above normal in the way of precipitation across the eastern half of the state, equal chances below, near, or above normal across the western half. Now, I say this with a grain of salt. I always talk about these 3 month outlooks. We look over here on the left, it might be calling for above normal temperatures. That does not mean the entire 3 month period is going to see above normal temperatures. We're still going to see some cooler temperatures from time to time. We're still going to see some drier periods from time to time, wetter periods, warmer periods, you name it. But overall, at the end of this 3 month period, this is kind of what the CPC, the Climate Prediction Center, is thinking will occur. So, looking at the monthly stream flow outlooks, running near normal across the state, we'll see if we do get that rainfall and if these outlooks verify for a little bit more in the way of above normal rainfall. That will go a very long way in determining these stream flow patterns as we move through June, but ultimately this latest outlook calling for near normal stream flows. Seasonal flood risk outlook, we're not having problems right now. Outlook suggests we're not going to see any problems moving forward. So something we like to see. We're not seeing any of those reds or oranges across the state of Kentucky. Going with a look at wildfire activity, or the wildfire potential across the United States. We're looking pretty good, near normal here in Kentucky. Out in western Kentucky or the western United States, it's been the case for quite some time now, above normal wildfire potential. And down there in Louisiana, Texas, Arkansas, they're actually seeing some improvements for the month of June. I would say most likely because of that ridge and the much above normal rainfall they saw recently. So in summary, I know it's been a long webinar this month, a lot to talk about. Both temperatures and precip ran below normal for the month of May, not without some above normal precip at the start of the month, but we did see those 2 weeks of very dry conditions. We did run very cool. Well, I should say we had a break in the cool weather, but for the most part, we ran cool for much of May. The drier May did lead to the introduction of abnormally dry conditions across eastern Kentucky by the U.S. Drought Monitor. We'll see if eastern Kentucky sees that rain today in the upcoming week, see if there will be improvement or not. Kentucky agriculture remains in good shape at this point. Outlooks hint that that will probably continue, and temperatures will likely trend warmer for at least the first half of June, accompanied by summer humidity. We'll see if that trend kind of turns in the opposite direction for the end of June. Time will tell. But anyways, that's where I'll end today. Our next scheduled webinar is again for July 1st, 2021, 2 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Central. If you have any questions after the webinar, after this question and answer session, feel free to email me, Stu, Bill, or Chip with the Division of Water and Stu there at WKU, and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. And just a little reminder, please sign up for that Drought and Hydrologic Impact Reporter, especially with these abnormally dry conditions starting to form across the state. So thanks again, and I'll send it back to you, Megan.
Thanks, Matt, for a great webinar. We'll take just a minute to let people unmute and ask questions or add it to the chat. I have added a few of the links that have come up, the Hydrologic Impact Reporter and the story map, as well as the Ag Weather Center update page into the chat. So you can click them and go to them from there. I'll also include those in the follow-up email after the webinar. So are there any questions? Sounds like you did an awesome job explaining everything, Matt. So thank you so much for being here. As he mentioned, the next webinar will be July 1st, and we will have Chip Zimmer from the Kentucky Division of Water presenting for that presentation. So all right, if you have any additional questions that you think of after we sign off, feel free to email, and we look forward to talking to you next month. Thank you.